I entitled my talk Project Northwoods Nature Center is born because literally I made this up. Just to give you a little bit of an introduction, I'm from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, which is about 70 miles south of where I currently live in winter and a little bit further south from Cable. I've always been a naturalist at heart. I grew up out in the country before we had Nintendo, we had no cable. So my brother and I played outside, and that's what we did. We played outside and got dirty and caught frogs and snakes and stuff like that. So it was no surprise that I went into being a biologist. I also, as a kid, I dreamt of owning a zoo or a nature center or a museum, and I would, this makes me a dork, but I would spend my time like making lists of all the animals I was going to have in my zoo, or drawing out the exhibits I was going to have in my museum, or whatever. So I have traveled all over the New World. I've done research in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Costa Rica, Peru, and I spent 10 years in Panama. I've now returned to Wisconsin, and a lot of people will tell you that what you consider most beautiful in your life is what you're interested in first in life. And I have to agree with that. Like, I've been to a lot of amazing places, but the Northwoods, that's where my heart is. So you always come back to, you know, what you knew first. And although there's way more snakes and whatnot in Panama, the ones in Wisconsin need attention too. So it's good to be back to Wisconsin after a long time away. So here's just a couple pictures of me out in the muck, or just always like trying to work with little kids and show them snakes and show them animals that most people don't like, to, you know, try to foster that connection with nature and make them appreciate these animals instead of just instantly wanting to kill them or dislike them. Okay, so a little bit more background, my education. So I got my undergraduate Bachelor in Science in Biology from University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. And then I actually worked for a year at the Brookfield Zoo because I was never going to go to school again. I was done with school forever. But a year later, I went to Northern Illinois University and got my master's degree. And I focused my research on Lake Erie water snakes. So I worked out in Ohio for my research. That wasn't enough, so then I decided to go get a PhD from Old Dominion University, which is located in Norfolk, Virginia. And my PhD is in ecological sciences, but I focused on reptile ecology, and that's where I started out my time in Panama doing my research on the Panamanian snake community and the frog declines. And then that still wasn't enough, so I'm currently partway through a master's in education and secondary education from St. Mary's University in the Twin Cities. So here's my affiliations, just to kind of give you a little bit of background. So my university affiliation, even though I live in Wisconsin, is the University of Nevada at Reno, and I'm a research associate. So that essentially allows me to publish my papers and have an affiliation. I also have adjunct biology department faculty status at Missouri State University. So I've hosted graduate students from there who have come and worked with me. So they do their coursework in Missouri and they do their research with me and then get their master's degree. I also hold a 5th through 12th grade science teacher license at Winter School District, and currently I just work there part-time. I was the full-time 8th through 12th grade science teacher. There's only one science teacher for every class in those grades. So I'm just part-time now. So I can run the nature center. Somehow I am the village president, the Village of Winter president. I'm not really sure how that happened. And then I'm the founder and director of Project Northwoods, which is what we're going to focus on tonight. Okay, so I definitely think that this quote is true, that most of my best memories have come from some dirt road, some crazy out in the field, catching animals, being in nature, spending time with people that also like to be in nature. And that's kind of where Project Northwoods was born. So when I lived in Panama, I put together a field station down there where we had tourists and graduate students and universities come down. So when I came back to Wisconsin, I kind of wanted to do the same thing, but you know, it's different in Wisconsin. So Project Northwoods is the project that I came up with, and it kind of encompasses a lot of different things. For example, one project we did here in winter is the playground in the public park. We helped raise about $10,000 and we made it an all-inclusive playground, meaning that even children with special needs can now play on the playground, whereas before they had a swing, a merry-go-round, and one climbing structure. So we're just involved in getting kids kids of all ages from 0 to 150 outside and enjoying nature. And our main focus right now is the Project Northwoods Nature Center, which is located right by the school in Winter on Main Street, or County W if you've been to Winter, so right across the street from the church, the Catholic church. Okay, so a lot of people ask me, what even is a nature center? I've heard everything from we are a store that sells CBD oil to we are a museum to we are a zoo. So this is the official definition of a nature center, or depending on what country you live in, nature center, RE. It's an organization with typically a visitor center or interpretive center where people can come in and become educated about nature and the environment. And I didn't write that, but I could have wrote that about what we're doing here. That's exactly what we're trying to do. So just to kind of expand on that, we and other nature centers have exhibits about the local environment. So wherever they're located, they're probably focusing on that local environment. Taxidermy mounts of local species, including like birds, mammals, fish. Examples of live animals from near or sometimes from far, depending. Sometimes you just end up with guinea pigs and things like that you take in as rescues. Reference library. So this is so people can come in and utilize field guides to look up species they've seen at their bird feeder or in the woods. Hopefully you have an informative staff that can answer questions. You get a lot of tourists that are new to the area, or just residents that have lived here their whole lives and they suddenly see something they've never seen before, so they want to know what it is or more information about a topic. And we don't exactly have this connected to our nature center because we are located on the main street of the village, but walking trails are outdoor activities. So we do have green space and we do have a 4-acre research plot that's just a couple miles away. So not connected, but very close. So why a nature center? So this is sort of the overall reason. Nature centers educate the public as well as foster connections between communities and the natural world. So a lot of people nowadays don't get outside as much as even when I was a kid. So this is a way for especially kids to learn about the natural world. And a lot of times kids will drag their parents into the nature center, and then the parents are the ones that fall in love with it and say, oh, I remember when I was a kid, I used to catch frogs and I don't do that anymore because now I live in a city or I work too much. So nature centers provide an outlet for that. And the reason why I decided to do a nature center was, I don't know, I always wanted to do it because there's so many cool things like live animals and pond water and all these cool things that you can show people that you don't necessarily have time to teach in a school because you have a curriculum and you have tests and you have activities and you just don't necessarily get to do all those hands-on activities that you would like to. Okay, so how do we operate? So this is specific to Project Northwoods. We are a 501c3 educational nonprofit because we have a fiscal sponsor, which is Cloud Forest Institute. They're actually located out of California. It seems a little weird that we would work with a Cloud Forest Institute, but this is the same organization that I've worked with for years, dating back to when we were in Panama, which I lived in a cloud forest, so it made a lot more sense at that point. What they do for us is they manage our donations. So people that make donations, it's tax deductible. They write all the thank you letters, all the letters for the taxes. They handle our accounting, they handle our taxes. They do take a small percentage of each donation, but there's no way that I could put in that many hours. So it's really worth it to have them take that percentage and handle everything for us. But we've kind of gotten to the point where we're a little bit too big. And so this fall, we are becoming an independent nonprofit. And this benefits us, not only are then, okay, it's more work in terms of the finances, but for example, if you want to apply for funding from the Green Bay Packers, they want you to be a Wisconsin-based project. which we are based in Wisconsin, but our paperwork says we're based in California. So it just makes a lot more sense to become Wisconsin based and, you know, grow up and take this challenge on ourselves with them continuing to guide us for as long as we need. Okay, so that's sort of the behind the scenes, but how do we do it otherwise? So we get support from monetary donations and also a lot of in-kind gifts. We do not charge admission at our nature center because our community is really impoverished. So there's just a lot of people here that even if it was $1 or $5 entrance, they would not be able to afford it. And there's a lot of kids in the village that come here all the time and they would never be able to pay to come. And this is a good place for them to come, to learn things. So we keep our admission free, which is of course a struggle, but it's just really important to me that nobody is excluded. We also get a lot of in-kind gifts. So right now, people's gardens are going crazy, hopefully. So people drop off zucchinis and lettuce and just all sorts of vegetables that we feed to our rodents and box turtles and tortoises. We have an Amazon wish list, so we put on there, you know, essentials that we need pretty regularly, like UVB light bulbs. There's one actually burned out right here by me right now that we need to replace. So things like that people can order through Amazon. It's shipped directly to us. They can do it anonymously if they want to, or they can put in there with and then we get a lot of other items gifted, and our community is amazing because I will come to Nature Center and there'll just be a bag of rabbit pellets sitting on the back porch. No note, nothing, you know, somebody just either accidentally bought it or wanted to help us out, which is amazing because, like I said, we're a pretty impoverished area. So the fact that people are thinking of us and donating in any way is amazing. So in short, the Village of Winter and way beyond that, people from all over the country are just amazing and have been helping us out so much. Okay, so who are our visitors? So we're located right next to the school. And of course, last year with COVID, it was a little, you know, messed up. We couldn't have kids come over here as much, but it's a 4K-12 school with about 250 kids and their teachers. But we also work with 2 different charter schools, literally any school that could get on a bus that could come here, could do a field trip. We also have a pretty large homeschooling following, especially from Park Falls. There's quite a number of families there that homeschool. The Girl and Boy Scouts have come, 4-H, we've had church groups, you name it, like any of those organized groups for children have come. We've had college interns and researchers. So this summer we had 2 college interns plus 1 high schooler that's going to college. And then researchers that are just want to see all of our different turtles that we have, or our taxidermy or skulls, any of that stuff. Tourists, especially like 4th of July, big holidays when tourists are in winter, they tend to stop by. And then of course, local residents, like I mentioned, there's a lot of kids in the village right now. They would live here, I think, if I let them. But they're getting really good at helping me feed the turtles, so that's great. Okay, so here's some pictures of this one over here. I think you can see my mouse. That was actually a high school history group that came. They were learning about Harriet Tubman and how she utilized like owl sounds and different nature sounds to lead people on the Underground Railroad. So we're not just limited to science. We even have creative writing groups come, art, all sorts of different things. Like it's just basically wherever your imagination can take you, people can come. So here's how we got started. This was our very first nature center, and it's the little tiny building. If you've been to Winter, it's right by the Lakewoods Cafe on Main Street across from the co-op. So we got a really small space. We didn't even have this whole building. We had like half of it. And we accepted donations of shelving. There was some shelving in there because it used to be a realtor office. So we had like some bookshelves and desks that we utilized. We got some taxidermy from Whiskey Ridge in Radisson, and then a couple other people that just had some, among other items like a beaver skull, some other sort of random things. We got a couple of senior citizens that volunteered to help us open it up and keep it open because I was still teaching full time, and I had, let's see, my daughter was 3 at that time, so I was a little busy. And then we just opened our doors. So we just decided, well, if I'm gonna have a nature center, I'm gonna do it. Some local people helped me find the building. The person who owned it, who has since passed away, gave us a really great deal on renting it, and we stayed there for about 2 years. And here's a couple pictures from the inside, so you can see it's really tiny. We didn't have a whole lot of stuff, but we had a great location right by the cafe and the co-op, so we got a lot of people that just walked through. But we ran out of space really quickly, so this was my house where I was living in, and then I'm not living in the house anymore, so it became available. I got a community grant that helped me redo the windows, the siding, put on the porch, electrical, all that kind of stuff. So this allowed us to move on up, but essentially down the street to right by the school. It's a much larger building, and we actually have green space. So I have about a 1/4 acre worth of land. So we have outdoor area for doing outside activities. The kids can play on the playground. We can have our turtles outside in the summer, our rabbits. So very nice to move on up. This is well, this is the room I'm actually in right now, except this was before it was as crowded as it is. So this is just some of the things that we have in the Nature Center. This case actually came from Cable Natural History Museum. They donated it to us when they got a bigger case. So we still use it every day. We love it. We have a really comprehensive mammal skull collection. We've collected about 150 taxidermy mounts at this point from Cable. Natural History Museum donated a bunch to us, UW Eau Claire. A lot of people who, for example, a lady's dad died and they didn't really want the taxidermy in their house. We have that on basically long-term loan. So if any of the grandchildren ever want it, they can come and get it from us, but for now it's at the Nature Center. We've collected a bunch of seashells and coral, and a lot of this either people have donated or I literally find it at thrift stores. And for a kid in winter who's never been to the ocean, to get to see these seashells and coral is pretty cool. So we just keep collecting those. Every time I see them at a thrift store for $1/4 or $1, I buy them. We have the research animals. So this is a picture of our snakes from a couple years ago. I currently have 12 garter snakes waiting to give birth. So we have them right on exhibit. As part of my research, people can come and see them and check out the babies, and sometimes you're lucky they're actually giving birth while you're here. Also from thrift stores, I kind of have a addiction to thrift stores. I have a huge collection of kids' science and nature books. So these really came in handy last year with COVID when teachers were all of a sudden couldn't get into their rooms. We had all sorts of books that they could borrow to read to students and teach students virtually. We have outdoor gardens and outdoor enclosures. We have a little shop that's filled with all sorts of different items, and everything benefits the Nature Center from there. So it's just a donation for the items, and we have items as cheap as 25 cents. So every kid is able to get something when they come. And then we try to utilize our porch as much as possible. So right now we took all these samples from different lakes around Sawyer County. So you can compare, like, you know, which one's clearer, which one's darker, stuff like that. This is my beloved golf cart, which currently is in the shop because it has an engine problem. But this is how I conduct my research in terms of working on turtles and snakes. Gets me everywhere that I need to go. And then this is our little cabin that we built for the interns. Storage also right now. Okay, so some of the information about the animals. We have a lot of animals here, which is somewhat different than some nature centers. So we have the museum sorts of exhibits like I just told you about, but then we also take in rescue animals, partly just because I really like animals. So once the word kind of got out, we ended up with a lot of animals, especially during COVID, when people would get pets and then realize they couldn't take care of them or it wasn't what they had expected. So almost every single critter that we have here is a rescue. We do adoptions. So this is when people or organizations can no longer take care of their pet. We take them in. So like I mentioned, we have like 9 guinea pigs right now that we've taken in. What I call rescues are, there's a very select group of animals that cannot remain in the wild. So for example, if we find a turtle that's been run over by a car, we're able to nurse it back to health, but it just won't survive in the wild. We may keep it here. Or if it's an ambassador animal, something like a snapping turtle that's regularly killed, we keep them so people can look at it up close and hopefully get a different perspective of the animal. And we're also fostering some animals. So we have a couple of animals where their owner is currently away in college or the military. So we are babysitting their animals until they come back. And when you consider something like a tortoise that could live up to 100 years, it's not a big deal for us to watch it for 4 years of its life. And then we also have a ball python where the people moved into an apartment that won't allow snakes. So instead of them having to give it up permanently, we're just taking care of it for them right now. Okay, so I can't show you all of our animals because that would take forever. So here's just sort of a brief overview of some of the stuff. And we try to have animals that also that people don't necessarily like, because that way they get to look at them up close behind glass and hopefully realize that they're not so bad. So we have a huge colony of hissing cockroaches. They're breeding like crazy right now. We have a couple of tarantulas, including this is Lily. She was at La Coudray College before she came to us, and she's probably about 17 years old now. So she's pretty old for a tarantula. Fish are another thing that we've kind of taken on just when people drop them off. So we have, well, there's the list of them. We have goldfish, of course. We have some cichlids. This bluegill, these people gave me their minnows when they were leaving to head back home, and the bluegill was in the bottom of the bucket. So he's so cool, we kept him. Or her, it's actually a girl. Here's some of our amphibians. So we have frogs, toads. We just got a newt, which is a salamander that spends most of its time in water. This is a picture of our axolotl. We lost him recently to old age, but he's so cute. I just had to put a picture on there because I like him. Okay, and then reptiles. Remember, I'm a reptile ecologist, so of course that's where my heart is. So that's what we have the most of. Here are some of our lizards. We have a bearded dragon, a few leopard geckos that have been rescued from various situations. We don't have too many snakes. Like, even though I'm a snake biologist, we kind of limit how many snakes we have because there are literally people who won't come here because we have snakes. So we have to have some because I want people to look at them and enjoy them and get to learn about them. But at the same time, I've realized that if I had all snakes, nobody would ever come, unfortunately. So here's just a couple of the different ones that we have: a corn snake, a ball python, and then we have some garter snakes, which are native to the area. So our focus kind of on accidents recently has really been on turtles. So 2 summers ago, we were going to do a Summer of the Turtle exhibit. And so we acquired some turtles from different rescues, including one from Mississippi. We got some different species. Then people found out and kind of dropped off some pets with us. Some breeders down in Florida said, hey, we have these turtles that we can't utilize to breed for one reason or another. We'll ship them up to you so that you can have them for people to look at instead of us euthanizing them. And one thing led to another, and we currently have 91 turtles of 56 different, or no, sorry, of, yeah, 54 different species. So in the world, there's 356 species of turtles. So we have about 15% of all turtles represented. So here's a couple of our turtles. Obviously, I can't put them all on here. This box turtle here, there's 2 of them. They come from Chicago, and the house where they lived caught on fire and their owner perished in the fire. And then when they were going through the rubble, they found these 2 turtles. Both of them are blind. This one's name is Rainbow, and she has a really hard time staying upright, so she probably has inner ear damage. We'll obviously have to live out the rest of her 100 some years in a facility because she wouldn't be able to go to the wild. This is a Matamata, which is a really cool turtle. And then here are some of our tortoises. So Bruno, again, he came from Chicago. He was a rescue. Kate came from Michigan. She's a sulcata, which is the 3rd largest tortoise in the world. This is Tina. She's actually belongs to one of my students who is at college right now. So all sorts of different diversity. So pretty cool for any visitor, but especially kids from the area to get to come and see this many turtles in little tiny winter. Just a couple other critters that we have. We have 5 parakeets. Those are the only birds that we have right now, but they make enough noise to be 100 birds. And then mammals, like I said, we have 9 guinea pigs that we've taken in all as rescues, usually 2 at a time. We have bunnies. We have these gerbils, which my daughter talked me into, and I have to say they're super cool. I've never had a gerbil before. And of course, a lot of people like the fuzzy animals, and especially the kids. So it's nice to have some fuzzy animals to go with the reptiles. Okay, so just a couple other things. Okay, just a couple other things I wanted to touch on that we do here, that not only our interns get to be involved with, but our tourists that time. And again, COVID kind of put a damper on a lot of things, but we do take just a general tourist or visitor or students out in the field with us if they're interested, and when it's safe to do so. This is a really good way to connect all of us to the environment, and it allows scientists to learn more about what's going on locally, because even though we live in Wisconsin and you think about something like a painted turtle or a garter snake, which are really common, there's so much that we don't know about them. We just assume that everything's been studied, but really we know next to nothing about a lot of these species. Plus, the environment continues to change, so these animals have to adapt. And how is something like climate change or the addition of roads or more humans in the area affecting them? So there's always things to study. So again, I'm a reptile ecologist, so that's where my heart's at. With the snakes, I do a variety of ecological, reproduction, and distribution studies. And then the turtles, we're looking at diversity in the county, Sawyer County, and then population dynamics and nesting ecology. So just to show you a couple pictures, these are my garter snakes. This is one of them here that just gave birth this year already. They're kind of early, which probably means winter is coming early, unfortunately. But this is a big female here full of babies. They give live birth. So we bring them into the lab as you're getting close to the point of the females giving birth, and we only keep them for them to give birth. We measure everybody, and then we release them back out into the wild. On average, garter snakes, this species of garter snake will have 8 to 12 babies on average per year. And this girl right here had 29. So something different's going on up here in the Northwoods. Probably she's having as many babies as possible to hope that some of them will make it through our cold winters. But I had one 2 years ago that had 39 babies. So we're way over the average. And then fox snakes, which a lot of people locally call pine snakes, are another one of them that I'm just monitoring their population. Because they're such a big snake, they're more rare because they're like a higher predator. And when you're thinking about like a food pyramid, there's just fewer of them in existence. And also people either think they're a rattlesnake because they vibrate their tail, or they think they're a copperhead. So they get killed all the time. So I'm permitted through the DNR, and also just work independently as a researcher to try to collect data to see where our snakes are at here in the Northwoods. And then on the other part of the summer, so snakes have a season where they're mating in like May, and you can find them, and then they have the season now where they're giving birth. But in between there, you can study turtles, because turtles are most active in June and September. So it's perfect. I stay busy all summer. These are painted turtles in the pictures here. So every single painted turtle has a different plastron or belly pattern. So you don't have to mark them. You don't have to saw into their shell or anything like people used to do. With digital photography, you take a picture of the pattern, and then there's computer programs you run it through, and it'll tell you if that turtle's already in your database or not, or at least give you like, oh, this is a 90% match, if the turtle's dirty or something. So we're also documenting where they're laying their eggs. These turtles, painted turtles up here in the north, actually hatch in September, here coming up any day, but they remain underground all winter, and then they emerge in May. So when you see those little baby painted turtles in May, they're just coming out of the ground. They froze solid all winter, but people don't really understand the biology of that. So that's one of the things I'm studying. And then snapping turtles are just, I don't know, they're just so cool because they're ancient, 250 million years on Earth. So many people torture them and purposely run them over. think that they'll bite their arm off, which is a myth. So, and this is the coolest field assistant in the world right here, my daughter. Okay, so then just kind of the last area I wanted to touch on. So, we do education, we do research, and then we do outreach. So how are we getting information out to the general public? We offer all sorts of different opportunities in our local community and then well beyond that. So one of them would, of course, involve coming to us. So we regularly welcome schools, homeschool groups, scouts, other activities, birthday parties, whoever wants to come. In addition to organizing our own sessions by age. So we have toddler groups where they get to start to, learn about their different senses, and they learn colors and numbers and things like that, dealing with nature, all the way up through high school. I have high school interns. So last year, 22 of the high school students got to leave one study hall a week to come over to Nature Center and help me out, which is amazing and super helpful to me. And then alternatively, we can go to people. So some of our exhibits and animals we can take on the road into the school, which was nice during COVID, because I am a teacher at the school and substitute teach. I could go into the classroom, whereas they couldn't come to Nature Center. So we were able to bridge that gap. And of course, virtually, that has really opened up so many new windows. Like a group in Texas could call us up virtually and look at our turtles. So that's pretty amazing. So here's just some of the school outreach. I did a lot of work with the kindergarten teachers. So these are kindergartners. We took in the rabbit, steak. She had a different animal each month that they would focus on, and then I would bring in other animals. So whenever I was a substitute teacher in that class, I would try to just bring in some other animal, and they were always like, well, what do you got? What do you got? So if they behaved, they got to see it. And if they didn't behave, they had to wait. Here's some of our sessions. So the Lutheran church in town this year, they did run a summer Bible school. So they actually donated to our library and to us for us to do different activities with the kids. So we made miniature gardens that were dinosaur themed. And then this is from our toddler group. So in short, we have all sorts of different critters, exhibits, and opportunities, and we're always looking for more. Like I mentioned, we've had, creative writers come and just want to write here, or artists that want to draw some of our animals, history. Teacher, can bring their kids and utilize our taxidermy to show them different animals that Harriet Tubman saw, just all sorts of different things. It's just really where your imagination takes you is what you can figure out how we can work with people. So here's just a little bit on our future plans. And some people would say that I need to settle down and not think I'm gonna be able to do everything, but I plan on living to be 200 years old. So I think I'll have time to do it. Here's several of the things that we have in the works, and I'll just give you an overview and then I'll show you some pictures. So we're not sure about this, but we're thinking, we had a building donated to us on Main Street in Winter. And one thing we're thinking about is opening up a thrift store, which would really benefit a lot of our families here in our community. We do have one, but the building is for sale and it will be closing. So a thrift store would really benefit people, but it also would help raise funds for the Nature Center. And like I said, I really like thrift stores. And then housing, a place for researchers, interns, and visitors to stay besides our little tiny cabin, which is not suited for winter. So we're looking at, 5-year plan, putting in a house where these people could come and stay. And then green space. So let me show you some pictures. This is the building that was donated to us, which, by the way, is absolutely amazing. Like, that someone in our community thought enough of our project to give us a building. Now, obviously it needs work, and that's fine. Like, lumber prices are not helping us out right now, but we're still kind of thinking. We've had other suggestions, maybe doing more like community-based workshops, classes, things like that. We've also considered actually moving our nature center to this building. We're not sure yet. And then the green space, this kind of came in junction with the building. And it's just one house over from where we're located. We're going to move the playset over here. We've also had some suggestions of putting in mini golf there for the community and for tourists. So right now it's just a great place for kids to get to play and our tortoises to walk around. And this is our other house that we got. This house, well, you can probably see in the picture, the floor is completely collapsed. So the fire department is going to do a practice burn and take this down for us this fall. And then for right now, it'll just be an empty lot, but we're hoping to put up a house in time, which would be available for people from all over to be able to come and work at our nature center and not have to worry about where are they going to stay. Okay, so here are just some ways that if you're interested, or if you know of people that are interested, that you can become involved in our project. So first of all, visit us. So we're on Main Street, right by the school, right across from the Catholic Church in Winter. I'm hoping to get a sign out on Highway 70 here pretty soon to help guide more people in. We're always looking for volunteers. I know some of you guys are not local, but even if you just, ever came to Winter for a weekend and wanted to come help feed the turtles or clean cages, or if you're a construction background and could help us with our new building that needs work, any of that kind of stuff. And then of course, I know everybody's always looking for donations, but like I mentioned, we try really hard. I don't want to charge admission. So any amount of money is very much appreciated. And $5, we can stretch that. I'm very frugal, so we can stretch that really far. And we just really appreciate every dollar that comes in. So here's our website. If you're interested in donating, you can just take a screenshot of it. And here's all of our contact information. So if you want to find us or follow us, that's our website on top. And then Facebook, we're just, well, I had to shorten Project Northwoods, so it's PROJ Northwoods, our location, and then our email address, if you wanted to contact me with any questions after this. And of course, all of that information is also on our website. So if you only want to write down just the website up there on top, Project Northwoods, wi.weebly.com, that will get you to all the other information. And Molly has it as well. So if you know her and want to connect with her to get it. Okay, so just a couple of acknowledgements here before we open it up for questions. So obviously, it really takes a village, like pun intended, to make a project like this work. So Cable Natural History Museum has been a phenomenal mentor and helper, and they've donated a lot of stuff to help us get up and running and just put me in contact, like our skull collection. Molly put me in contact with the person that helped us build that. So a huge thank you to Cable for not only inviting me tonight, but also just always being there as such a great collaborator and friend. And then all of you who joined us tonight, thank you for your interest in this silly project that I made up. And thanks for giving up 7 o'clock on a, Wednesday night to join us. All my family, friends, and colleagues who, I don't know, some of them probably think it's really crazy, and some of them have told me that I'm crazy for trying to do this, and a lot of times doing it all by myself when the kids go back to school and whatnot. But they still donate and they still come and they still support me, so I appreciate that. All of my assistants that I've had, my interns that I had this summer, was the first time we did interns, and that was just so helpful, and I wish they would come back. And I know you're watching this, Shayla, so you can come back. And then my volunteers from the community, and just even the local kids that come and help me feed turtles. It's a huge help. You don't realize it. And at first you think, oh, this is going to be kind of awkward and hard because I got a 6-year-old kid with me, but they love it and I love it. So thank you to all them. And then just to my community who donates to us and gives us buildings, and just amazing. And then the community doesn't stop here in Winter. It goes really far away. We have people all over this country and beyond that follow this project. Okay, so at this point I can open it up to any questions, and Molly's going to help me with that. So I'm going to take this off.
Yeah, thanks so much, Julie. It's really cool to be able to see the center kind of at its beginnings, and I'm hoping to follow along and be a part of your expansion and all the good things that you're doing. So thank you so much for sharing more about what you're doing and opening this up to us. So at this point, everyone is welcome to turn on their camera if you'd like. If you are interested in sharing any comments or questions with us, you're also welcome to turn on your microphone and ask verbally. I just ask that if you can, to use the hand raise function or use that on your screen. We did have a question come in a little bit earlier from Mike, and that is, what can the average person do to be a better steward of the environment in the Northwoods in particular? It's kind of a big question.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest thing that everyone can do is realize you can't do everything. You know, like if every person just did one little tiny small thing, whether, you know, be I'm not going to run over a turtle all year, you know, unless it's an accident on a corner or something, or I'm going to recycle all of my pop cans. And, you know, people here bring their pop cans and drop them off with us, and we've raised over $600 this summer by people giving me their beer cans and us taking them and recycling them. You know, so little tiny things like that, maybe not a big deal, but if every single person did one thing, it would all add up. And just appreciating, you know, like so many people don't like snakes, and that's fine. Because my mother hated, like she just could not even look at snakes. So I understand that fear, but there's no reason to kill them. You know, if we just leave them alone, and snapping turtles and spiders and ants, you know, whatever it is, there's no reason that we have to kill them. Just leave them alone, and you don't have to like them, but just respect them. So I would just say, just do one thing, like pick out whatever your thing is and do that, and encourage everybody else around you to pick out their one thing. Because not everybody likes animals, but some people like plants. So, you know, that's fine. Just do something, whatever it is.
Really, I would also add to that just briefly, also picking out if there's one thing that you're passionate about in nature, you know, really kind of dive into that. And clearly, Julie, you have some really strong interests too. And, you know, all of us kind of have these childhood memories that connect us to a natural space or a species. And if we really follow that passion, and become more aware of that thing and open ourselves to the information that's out there, I think that can really do the trick too, that helps us to connect and then become stewards and advocates for what we're passionate about too. So just thought I'd add that in there. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Feel free to add any more questions to the chat or raise your hand again. One of my questions that came up, and maybe this is just because I'm in the strategic planning mindset after meetings all day long today. If you, Julie, had to identify just one kind of top priority area right now for the Nature Center, could you do that, and what would that be? And then I'll add to that question, where might you see the center in, say, 5 years' time? What would that look like?
Well, so Molly, when you were here a year ago, we were pretty crowded, and we are way more crowded now. So, you know, that's one of the things with the new building. What we need is space. We're full out of space, and it would be easy for me to say, okay, no more. I'm not taking on another guinea pig. But what happens tomorrow when I show up and there's a guinea pig sitting on my porch that somebody just dropped off? I have to take it, you know, because it's an animal and it deserves a good life. So space is our biggest thing. We're looking at all sorts of different options. There's, you know, with COVID bounce back, luckily we're on Main Street, so there's options out there for funding right now, whether we move partly into that new building, whether we use that as ways to like help fund us to add on an addition, whether I somehow win the lottery this weekend and buy this humongous building on the edge of the village that is like 30,000 square feet. But, you know, so I guess the big thing is like, I'm just going to keep dreaming, and it always happens. I don't know how, you know, we didn't have a space, and then we found this little tiny space, and then I wasn't living in my house anymore, so that became available. So I guess you just have to keep hope and somehow make it happen, even if I have to keep like adding sheds and connecting them all with walkway. I don't know, but somehow we're going to have more space as soon as possible, because that will just facilitate more people coming and us being able to do our job better in here. It's really hard to clean And this is a house, so I didn't take out the kitchen. Like the stove is still there, and we put a board on top of it, and then that's where we pile stuff, or like we empty buckets into the bathtub. So more space, that's better designed, but at the same time, we're just going to keep doing it every day until we get that. So
Sure. Yeah, and in the field, I find it's impossible to say no. We tend to think on everything that we can possibly do, and we always find that it's possible.
Right.
So yeah, let's see. We had another question from John, and he says, "I see that you listed red-bellied snakes. He's wondering how hard is it to raise that species or to keep them?"
Yeah, so red belly snakes, or locally people call them red belly racers, they're really small. They're definitely less than a foot long, more like 8 inches. They're live bearers as well. So we only bring them into captivity to have them give birth, so that we can measure the babies. Again, they're having way more, like we had one this year that the record was 14 and she had 15. So we're just trying to document that. The babies are smaller than angleworms. So we don't even try to feed them. Literally, they're born, we measure them, and we release them immediately. They will. So Shayla she's on here. She was one of my interns. She actually got some of them to eat. Like she has way better vision than me and way more patience than me. So she cut up these little tiny worms, and you could get them to eat. But they're one of the species that we do not keep in the nature center more than, just a few days, because they're so hard to take care of.
Great. Looks like Shayla might be interested in adding some more insight. Shayla, do you want to turn your microphone on and share, or you can go ahead and type too? We also had a comment earlier on regarding those lake samples, those water samples that you had out on the porch there. That's a really cool idea, and I agree. It seems like you're really open to experimenting and having some of those hands-on opportunities for folks. So just wanted to share that. That's very, very cool.
And it's super easy, like I just took an ice cream bucket, and then we had a bunch of containers that like peanuts and stuff come in that people give me all the time, coffee cans. And that's what we collected it in. And then we put them in old fish bowls, so it literally costs no money other than a little bit of gas money to drive around. And it's really cool. And then, some of them have tadpoles and some of them have copepods and all sorts of different things in there that you just accidentally get in your random sample. So it's a really effective exhibit that doesn't cost anything.
Right. And that's really important, because money can really influence things sometimes. So it's awesome. Mike had another question. Do you have any theories as to why your sample snake birth mothers are having more babies?
So in general, there's kind of 2 strategies in reproduction in general. So if you think about like a human or an elephant, we tend to have 1 or 2 or maybe 3 babies, and then we put a lot of effort into it, right? So 18 plus, probably way more years of raising a child, probably forever raising a child. So that's one strategy, and that's called K strategy. And then the R strategy is you have a whole bunch of babies and you don't put any effort into it. Like for example, a snake or a fish, they just lay their eggs and maybe guard it a little bit, but then the babies just grow up on their own. And you hope that some of them make it. So you're putting really large numbers out there with hopes that some will make it and carry on your genes. I really think up here it's a northern thing. So there's very few studies that have been conducted up here in the north. So you say an average of 8 to 12 babies for garter snakes. Those numbers are coming from further south, Illinois, where there's a lot more universities and research than there is up here in the Northwoods. So partly the numbers are skewed. Nobody's ever submitted these numbers from up here. As soon as I publish it, the averages have to go up. But I also just think it's the weather. It's so cold here. These babies are being born now or very soon, going right into hibernation, not eating, and then coming out in the spring. So a lot of them are going to freeze to death. So the more babies you have, the better chance that your genetics carry on.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat right now. Just hold that open for a moment. Julie, I don't know if you mentioned this specifically, but if one of us wanted to visit you right now, this fall, can you share what your hours might be?
Oh yeah, I didn't even put that in there. Well, that's kind of a loaded question because school's starting and I substitute teach at the school. So, you know, if you've ever substituted or you know anything about that, you can get called at the last second to go in. Right now our hours are 9 until 2, except Sunday we're closed. And then usually Fridays we do just by appointment, and that allows us to really clean everything well before the weekend, because that's when we have a lot of tourists in town. So we try to do a really thorough cleaning and just kind of have a more laid back day. But I live in the village, so literally, you know, if you can track me down, and I have the golf cart and everybody knows me because I'm the village president, so just ask around, somebody will find me, and I will open up for you. And of course, email or Facebook, you know, just say, hey, I'm coming in on Saturday, can you meet me at this time? That works really well. And if you're scheduled in, I do not sub, or the school's really awesome. If I have like somebody coming at 10 o'clock, they'll find somebody to cover for me so I can come over to Nature Center across the street, do the group, and then go back to subbing. So, you know, it's kind of hard to set exact hours once the school year starts, but at the same time, I'm really flexible. So I can meet people at any time.
Great. Thank you for being open. I'm sure that, you know, volunteership and having an extra set of hands can really help to influence your availability too. So
yeah, that too. Like if we, you know, had, well, like I was telling you before, if we could find an intern right now that's either taking online classes or is in a gap year from college, you know, we have really good internet here. So if they could come and work around their online classes and do an internship at the same time, that's super ideal for them and for me. So we're looking, you know, and if I get an intern, then if I'm subbing, or if they're a teacher who is able, you know, like finishing up their teaching degree, who can also sub at the school, you know, there's all sorts of options here. So if anybody wants to volunteer, or even, you know, one day a week, if you live in the Cable area and you want to drive down when the weather's good and help us out, that's, you know, we're super flexible. We piece this together out of thrift stores and donations, and, you know, the same with like our volunteers, we piece it together. So we're really flexible.
absolutely. All right. Just because we are at 8 o'clock right now, I'm going to thank anyone who has to leave right away. This is our last lecture of the summer series. However, our fall programming is out right now, so you can check out some of our virtual programs as well as in person on our website. Again, I'm going to do my very last call for donations, and I'll share the link in chat. Again, this helps to directly support our programming in the future and keep some program series free. Julie, if you have time to stay on, we can take a couple more questions. I am seeing lots of applause from the audience here. Some promises to come visit soon. Adrian had a question, and that is, if the snakes are out in the wild, how do you find them, and when? How do you find them when they are pregnant?
Oh, well, we kind of know, and this year's weird. Like, the red belly snakes gave birth 3 weeks early, which is scary when you think about fall coming. Like, the animals know what they're doing, and if they're giving birth that early, they know that cold weather's coming. I know, Jeff, I'm sorry, but it's true. Like that, the animals know what's going on. I'm working these same field sites all the time, so I know the snakes. I know where they're hanging out. I tend to go earlier. Some researchers might push it a little bit and say, we got another week before we have to bring them into the lab. It's ideal that they're out in the wild. We don't want them in the lab more than what they have to be. They get as much food as they want. They get water. They're outside, you know, so they're in their environment. They have shelter and everything. But if you push it too long and you miss it, then you got to wait a whole another year. So just collect them kind of in the middle to end of July. And then, so we've already had 2 give birth. I have 12 more to go. And they'll give birth here any second, you know, literally. I'll come in tomorrow, might have 4 that have dropped their babies. So we're right in that window. And then if it's like close to a weekend and we know we're going to have tourists, we tend to hang on to them because everybody loves to see the baby snakes, because even if you don't like snakes, baby snakes are cute in their own snaky way. So we'll hang on to them, but we get them back out into the wild as soon as I can get them measured. And that helps too. Once these high schoolers are back in school and they can help me measure and like write data for me. If anybody just wants to come and hold the clipboard for me for a day so I can call out numbers and they write them down, that's a huge help too. So, because my hands get so dirty of, you know, snake poop and stuff, and then you're trying to write it down. So yeah, if anybody wants to help out with that, I will gladly take the help.
Absolutely. All right. Any more questions?
I have one, Julie or Molly. On this, getting away from reptiles, more into the insect world.
Mm-hmm.
And I've looked this up and I can't find a good, reasonable answer. What determines on monarchs, male and female, is it temperature or what? Because last year I had a lot of males. This year I seem to have more females. Or was it just one of those things?
Sure.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I've done work with insects before, and of course you can tell a monarch male and female based on the dot on the wing. For anybody who doesn't know, you can actually tell males from females pretty easily. I'm not sure like what their sex ratio is, you know, if it is 50-50 males versus females, or you know, like turtles are determined by temperature. So as our temperatures are rising from climate change, there are more females incubated at a higher temperature. But I don't know about monarchs. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you either, John. But thank you for putting us on the spot. I'll be sure to ask Emily, and she might have some insight, unless anyone else here does.
Well, just curious, because somebody else asked me what determines the male and female, and I said I haven't the foggiest idea.
Yeah, I'll look into it and email you, John.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys.
Great question.
Great program, Julie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and if anyone else, again, I'll echo the fact that Julie has a really strong online presence. I mean, she is really engaged on Facebook. If you follow the Project Northwoods page, there are updates constantly. I don't know how you do it. You know, that's a whole job in itself. So you can follow along there. If you have any questions for Julie going forward, you know, feel free to reach out to her directly, or you can get a hold of us here at the museum and we'll make sure to connect you. I'll also mention that this recording of the meeting will be placed on the museum's YouTube channel within a few days, depending on how quickly I work on it. So we'll have that link available on our website as well as our Facebook page, so you can have access going forward. Yeah, with that, any last words, Julie?
I don't know, just come see us whenever you're in winter, you're close to winter. You know, we have the greenhouse and we're on the same road as the greenhouse, just turn the other direction. So come see us.
Make a trip.